Hey everyone, today I continue my talk with Raviv, an AI entrepreneur who will shed some light on the fascinating world of artificial intelligence. We'll be delving into the topic of AI uncovered, overcoming obstacles in building intelligent products. Stay tuned for a thought provoking discussion with our guest. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and you're so invited to join the discussion. I'm Mazor Kario, and with me, hi Raviv. Hi Raviv, how are you?
Hi, Eddie. Great to be here again.
Yeah, it's like the first time I'm doing two parts, which means that it was a really interesting talk. So if you didn't hear the first one, go and listen to it right now and then continue from here. Raviv Yatom is an AI entrepreneur and co-founder of Amphorica. So now we can start or maybe restart our discussion. So we talked about creating AI products and we talked about how to implement them and how did you become an AI entrepreneur and so forth. We talked about some of the challenges with AI. And now I want to ask you, let's say I'm an entrepreneur, I want to enter this field and I'm not that experienced as you. So what are the roles and expertise that are really essential for a successful AI product development?
So I think it's about understanding AI, and somebody said in a podcast I heard lately that it's a muscle that you have to train, this AI muscle. And it's a different muscle than the other muscles because it's still very undefined. But at the same time, I can feel it sometimes that I have this muscle that helps me understand whether things are feasible or whether not, just because I failed a lot at certain points, and I know to avoid those failures. And that could be if the problem looks not feasible because there is not enough data, for example, or maybe just you understand that by talking to people who are domain experts in the field that you're trying to solve, you understand the limitations, and therefore you understand that in physics you can't even solve the problem that you're looking to solve.
Yeah.
Even before you go to competition and stuff like that, it's unsolvable, and you don't go there.
Yeah.
At the same time, there is so much ramp up to do in terms of podcasts, YouTube channels that you can see and update with the last. I think YouTube is a great tool to learn, by the way, everything. And when I'm talking about YouTube, obviously I'm talking about all the videos out there, or video materials that people usually either share insights or new developments, or walk you through how to do stuff. And that happens a lot, like DIY, do it yourself,
Yeah.
type of methods, and they just walk you through, and you just get trained. And I have to say that I'm playing guitar, so once you had to find this like perfect teacher that is resonating with you. And now there are so many out there that can teach you guitar, and all you have to do is rewind, 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 and go back again to the parts that you didn't get. But the effect that you have, the perfect teacher, you can rewind him and abuse
Hmm.
him as much as you want.
Yeah.
uh, I think that the same applies here. It's almost like all the information is out there for you. It's just a matter of how you pick it up, and also the context of it. So I guess I guess that I like to learn mission based, and sometimes to wonder, just
Yeah.
expand my so I think doing those two things in parallel, being
Yeah.
very concrete and also trying to solve the things that you're like mission oriented, and not necessarily learn widely and try to guess everything, because you can't, you just can't.
Yeah.
You have to
I
understand.
feel that it's like the other way around there. It's like too much information and trying to understand what to do.
Right,
Most entrepreneurs understand software, but
right,
AI is a bit different. And I guess you need to understand what is the difference in developing a AI model or using an existing AI model or several of them in order to create what you need.
right, right. And I think there are great ways to keep keep you updated with what's happening. And one of the best is to find people that you can follow, and you trust in them, and you believe that their material is valid, and you just follow with them, and there's 1-2 minutes papers. It's a video channel which brings up like the latest advancements in AI, and it's really beautiful with a lot of passion. And then it opens up your mind, and you say, okay, if that has been done, probably something parallel can be done, and these are the abilities out there. This is the maximum ability, and I think that's one way. Another way is to, first of all, there is this barrier of buzzwords, which
Right.
people, learn the buzzwords, because it's almost like a club that everybody talks in with the language,
Yeah.
and we both know that as soon as you understand something as complex as it is, it becomes simple. And that's why buzzwords are like a wall sometimes, when people listen to other people, and they lose attention when the buzzwords come up, and they don't know, and they feel unconfident. And so I think listing out the buzzwords, and just knowing them is important, as much as
Yeah.
it's unimportant, and we say, we just name drop. uh,
Yeah.
uh, at the same time, you have to know them, because this is almost like the common language for these materials, and understand that behind those this fear of the buzzwords, there is very simple logic, like that could be understand very easily. Once you understand the buzzwords, you start to understand the feeling and the relationships between the model that has to evolve, the training set. All those words are just basically simple procedures that you have to understand. And basically, if I'll summarize it up very quickly, there are two types of machine learning: supervised and unsupervised. So both of them require a lot of data, and they work differently, because one of them is you are kind of the god of the environment, and you're saying this is the ground truth, and just do whatever you need in order to find this ground truth. If it's about dogs and cats, to identify between them, or whatever it is, you have this ground truth. And the second method is the unsupervised, where you kind of give the machine learning, listen, I have all this set of data. Can you group those data points to similar data points, even without me telling you anything about the problem? And then it's almost like and the combination of those methods, by the way, can be very powerful, like doing some stages with the ability of the machine learning to identify similarities or relationships that you don't necessarily see, and the the ability to know the ground truth before and use that. So
Yeah.
this is kind of something that can simplify stuff, because you know that you need a lot of data, and it has to be labeled. It means that if it's a picture of a dog, it has to be labeled with the dog name, and that therefore this is like supervised. And the other method
Hmm.
is almost like you give the machine learning the ability to search the data for you, and try to come out with insights that not necessarily about before, even, or you don't have any label on the data. So
Yeah.
this is something that is easy to understand, but once you put like names on top of it, it becomes complicated.
Yeah.
And I wanted to slide through to education, because I mean
Sure.
it's all about teaching ourselves how to master the tools, and how to make the best of what's out there. And I think there is a major change in the way we should educate ourselves, our kids, educational system. I think there's a major change that we have to pass through, and there's a leap we have to take, and it's about memorizing. And we all studied in schools where you memorize and memorize and memorize. Even the universities were kind of a memorizing process. Maybe software wasn't so much like that, but most of our education was memorizing words, relationships, dates, types of whatever it is. It was memorizing, and I think
Right.
it changed. It changed a lot, and not because of the AI. It will change also because of the AI, but because of the Google or the internet, or the ability to bring information so fast and so true. And um, and therefore it's more about creation and integration than about remembering stuff. and and I think it's a huge change. And that means that you have to learn by experiencing more than by memorizing. So it means
Yeah.
by doing
Yeah.
stuff, you actually learn by getting into the process and starting to, almost like a kid who builds with Lego and doesn't necessarily knows the diagram of how it looks like, but he starts with the piece and he puts another piece on that. And I think that's the process where that's the real educational process that we have to go, is to take the first step, and without necessarily knowing the whole picture, but 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 start to take the first step and learn by doing, and not by
Yeah.
learning, and
Yeah, I think that what you're saying is right for two sides. One is for the kids. I have four kids, and I always question myself, what do they really need to know? And is it as important as in before to have a degree with with the label of very distinguished university and all that? And on the other side, the people who go through these systems get to be adults in the end, and then they create these like machines, and some of them would decide to work in creating these kinds of machines. And if you want to create that, you need a certain degree of understanding. And what you are saying is not always that strict, or going through a degree and going through the education. You could just start something and then learn from that. This is what you
right,
mean.
right. And we see even in high tech companies, we see more and more people who did not go through the ordinary education, but did are more of a self teaching kind of persons, like autodidact deductivity,
Hmm.
the ability to do it yourself,
Yeah,
and I think that's super important. Um, and when you learn AI, it becomes very important, because in this specific topic, I think it's changing so fast that that I don't think you have to learn it like widely, uh, to say, okay, I'm going to learn AI. I'm going to start it by learning all the possible
courses.
courses. And for me, it didn't work, I have to say. I liked much more to learn by doing and by experimenting, and sometimes it was just doing things which are really unnecessary. Like in the beginning of my career, I used to play with simulation of fish like organisms in a simulation world, where I used to give the fish a brain of a neural network in order to live in his virtual aquarium. And it was fascinating, and it taught me a lot, like about machine learning. And even without the goal of specific goal, but just having this goal of creating this world and playing with it, I learned a lot more than I would have learned if I would systematically try to memorize
Yeah.
all the methods and I think it resonates very well with playing music. Like, you can learn the theory, but until you don't practice and just touch the guitar and play with it, you don't really learn. So I think the learning once was almost the is almost not relevant today. Like,
You don't think it's relevant? I'm just imagining, people who went through first and second degree in AI, machine learning, they're supposed to be, these are the people that we need to consider when we're thinking about, okay, I have an idea, I need to implement it. Shouldn't I find someone like that?
so first of all, I'm sure there are a lot of those who are great and will not agree with me in that sense. And obviously,
Okay.
it's a cognitive dissonance. Once you graduated, you obviously don't believe that you did it for nothing. But
Of course.
obviously, you learn in the university and you learn a lot of interesting stuff, and it probably helps. But I think it's in terms of efficiency and and um, and also the ability to really learn. I think that you really learn when you do stuff, and people may not agree with me, but I think that's the way to learn. By the way, in the university, you do stuff also, so you probably learn.
Yeah.
But I think if you want to really learn, it's by doing stuff, and not necessarily trusting those affirmations of, titles or anything like that. It's more about the ability to open yourself to new materials, to open your mind, and to collect the relevant information that you need in order to understand something. And that means, like, it, the muscle here is curiosity, obviously.
Right. Right.
That's the muscle, right? That's
Yeah.
the kind of
That's
the
the
muscle.
muscle that you don't use when you're a student in school.
Right,
It,
exactly.
it
You
doesn't matter if
don't.
you're curious
Right,
or not, you need to go through the test.
right. And curiosity goes very well with creativity, right? It's
And
almost
entrepreneurship too,
right,
in order to
right,
be a good entrepreneur.
right.
Yeah.
So that's why I firmly believe in in new methods of learning, and I'm always trying to find, like, and it's also connected to well-being and meditation, and the ability to really
Yeah.
observe information, and not being locked into your own concepts or anything like that.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
but
We
like,
have just a minute
like
before we continue.
sure,
I keep this thought.
sure.
We have two people saying, like Jonathan said, it's very insightful and thank you.
Thank
So
you.
Jonathan Wilner, thank you. And Ayelet mentioned that learning in university is not necessarily means not learning by doing or working with industry. So thanks, Ayelet Segal. Yeah, we agree with that. But I think there is this clash between going through the method or going through the path that is already paid for you if you want to reach somewhere,
Hmm.
and trying something which is totally different. And what you're saying is a bit like not the normal path people would take.
Right,
And
right.
I'm questioning, like, I'm just thinking, what would you say to your kids when they get to the age of, okay, I'm going to university, I'm trying things, I want to try to be somewhere else. What would you tell them?
So interesting. So me and my daughter were laying on the beach like a week ago, and she asked me. She's 18, and she asked me, like, Dad, what am I? What do you recommend me to do in my life? What profession should I choose? And I was sitting, like, asking, oh, because I was kind of taking her to the direction of technology, but at the same time, my answer was go and learn something that can help people mentally, because they won't go so easily to AI for that kind of help. They'll need
Yeah,
the human touch. So be something that, and it's totally opposite to the way, I choose how to live. But I
yeah,
think with the tools that are coming out, like all those that are replacing software developers, that are replacing a lot of, consultants, or insurance, or bankers, or whatever it is. There are a lot of, professionals that are going to die soon, or going to, as I told you before, people are not willing to pay so much now. Maybe in the future, I can see it clearly, for software development, now that you have, like, a language model that can also write code for you. So
yeah,
I think the mental aspect, people are not going to give away their soul easily to a machine.
yeah,
Even if it's better, they still, I think they'll need the human touch.
yeah,
So that's what I told her. Don't tell it to
yeah.
everybody. It's
Yeah, I'm just wondering, there was a research that you could have medicine online, and they took doctors, they would answer people for very, like, mundane questions about their health,
Mhm,
and they took an AI to answer. And then they rated how human it is. The people who got the help rated
mhm,
the answers they got from the doctors and the AI doctors. And the AI doctors were much better and
mhm,
more empathetic, and they had more time to really think, what should you do, or even, like, say things like, it's really common that you're worrying about that, like sentences that will comfort you. And on the on one side, it's like the right answer if you understand that this is what people are looking for from a therapist or a doctor or whatever. On the other side, what you're saying is that as we go closer and closer to technology, we need something which is not a screen, which is more tangible. right? That you could,
Right.
it's human just to see someone and looking in his eyes. Even this is not really looking in each other's eyes, right?
Right. Right.
So I understand what you're saying, but it seems that we'll have more and more technology and people will live more in the digital world with AR and all of that, the digital world, and the meta world and all of that. It seems like this is where we're heading. And what you're saying, okay, it will probably go to the different direction afterwards.
So I have an interesting aspect about that. So
Yeah,
let's imagine my daughter is becoming a psychologist,
yeah, let's say.
psychiatrist, or something like that. Yeah. So she's going to be much better if she is going to use AI for her decision making.
Right.
And that's a big major change, right? It's so she may use those AI tools, get those insights, and translate it, in a way that is much better than the computer will. I just had an exhibition of art, and I needed to. Uh, I'm doing bears, like bear sculptures, and I had
Yeah,
to write like some, and I'm lousy at writing like feelings and express myself. But then, I used the chat GPT. I actually like I told him, okay, this is the exhibition, this is myself, this is what I went through, this is my process, and just bombed him with all those facts without any music in it, in
yeah,
terms of lyrics. And it came out with this beautiful uh, like uh, essay or executive
yeah,
summary that I could put in my exhibition. And I did had to fix like something on top of that, but that's an amazing step for me, to be
yeah,
able to express my feelings with the machine, and be a better version of myself. And I think
yeah,
that's what it's about being a better versions of ourselves, and we can use those tools without being afraid of them to be a better version of ourselves.
yeah,
So so in that sense, it's beautiful. And if people will, psychologists who will adapt those methods will obviously
yeah,
be much better. And the doctors also, when I'm going to a doctor, it's almost like it's absurd, and
yeah,
thinking about the perspective of AI. Doctors set
yeah.
in is, they learned the books for 7 years. They
At
memorized them.
least.
They memorize, at least, right? Sometimes
Yeah,
it's like 15 years. Now,
yeah,
think about how much time they spent in memorizing stuff instead of, we talked about the doing, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
they could have been much better. And also think about the fact that a doctor can now, and I can see it happening, can get can work with the AI to give better treatment. So it means
yeah.
that he gets the information, he goes and asks like
Yeah,
the AI what.
I can tell you about it too for psychiatrists, which is like in the middle between a doctor and a psychologist. And what it does, it's taking the data, recording the discussion. So you don't need to, doctors
Right,
they always press with one finger. I
right,
don't know why it is. So it's like they're taking all the discussion. They are taking out the main topics that you talked within the session of the psychiatry. They would indicate some topics, which is like, is he suicidal or not? Their understanding of the topics. It will be saved, of course, through your files, right? So you have all the sessions for a psychiatrist, and it could go back and tell you this is what was mentioned like 2 discussions ago. He mentioned something very similar, and maybe it would resonate with this kind of diagnosis or understanding of the person.
right,
And it's already there. By the way, it's taking the data and it's like changing all the personal information. So when you go to the cloud in order to get all the AI, you will not get the person identity and like details
anonymization.
that would, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
privacy.
like, and I saw it, it was like an amazing thing. So it seems that even in this kind of a very emotional intelligence capability, you could get help from the AI itself.
For sure. And think about it, the AI itself as a language model is summarizing the experience of us human beings on our planet, basically, right? It's what we wrote on our experiences. And it means, our emotions are in there. And also medical information, right? All the, I used to go to a hospital and they would be proud in their research that involved like 120 people.
Right.
Now that's nothing. That's like super nothing. Like it's almost like insulting, right?
Yeah. For an
And
AI, it's nothing for sure.
right, right. And think about, probably in all your problems in your life, you're not the first one to meet this problem, right? Engineerically or emotionally or whatever it is,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
or medically, and the ability to collect all those. And by the way, here in Israel, we have this like system that has all the medical information quite concentrated, which is good, which is great, because then you can come up with the insights. All right, if you're 41 and you're smoking and X, you're about to, there's a higher chance of, or,
Yeah.
I think, and that's what we have to embrace here. That's
Yeah.
that AI is basically a wisdom by itself. It's a wisdom.
Yeah. You mentioned that it's not artificial. It was in our last talk.
Right, right. And I mentioned that artificial is our invention. This is like, if this
Yeah.
is artificial, then we are artificial. and
Yeah.
and this is part of nature, and this is wisdom, and we can use this wisdom to make our life much better and to be better versions of ourselves. And I think, those examples, sorry, of
Mhm.
of a doctor being humble enough to understand that although we spent a lot of time memorizing, we're limited in our capabilities, and
Yeah.
we can use those tools. It can, make the decision much better, and we doctor can save lives or heal people, or be much more efficient than, just trying to guess, going through
Yeah.
his small Sudoku,
Yeah.
Alice.
Way of thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah, I totally understand. We had another comment about what we said about curiosity, staying curious, and you mentioned humble. Both of them is not. Most people are not humble for sure, and not curious. I would say. So Karen Suk, Dr. Karen Suk, she was one of my guests, and she's a friend. And she says, and indeed, practicing presence and being mindful create a beginner's mind and the ability to see new things in a new way. This is what we need to enable creativity. So we're going back to the fact that we will not get it from the devices or the tech. We need to have this kind of way of thinking, either as students or entrepreneurs or any kind of professional. Being humble and being open-minded
right,
is what is really important. And I find it funny because when we have more technology, it seems like we need to think less, right? We need to think
right,
less because we get everything. We don't need to, like, we're just asking a question and we get everything, right?
right.
So,
But we
but
still,
it's the
first of
other
all,
way around.
we can still enjoy the answers. If they're smart and good, we can still embrace them and enjoy them with intelligence. And maybe we won't be in the nits and bits of understanding, how things are working, to be honest, we all of us don't really know how things are working. None of
Yeah,
us human being understands how a phone works in all
of course.
layers, right? No, none of us.
No,
Like, one of
right,
them,
right.
one of us is specialist in that kind of material, and it's a collective effort, almost like a collective effort. So I think that the key of humbleness is so important, and this means curiosity, creativity, listening. This is so hard in today's world, like to listen, to
For
really
sure.
listen, like not
Yeah,
really listen.
yeah,
And I think those are the key elements also to learning AI. um as much as it's simple, these are the elements: curiosity, creativity, simplicity. And once you find yourself in kind of a wall, it's probably because of a buzzword, much more
yeah,
than a realistic problem or process. The processes are quite simple, and imagination is so important here. For me, I always feel like I have those, once I used to dig with a spoon, and now I can, like, I have this huge tractor that I can dig with, and it's amazing. Like, maybe I don't
Yeah.
feel like the spoon anymore, but I can create like great things, great, amazing things. And and I'm also learning here, I have to say that, and this is the humbleness. I'll never be at the point where I think, I know, because probably then I'll stop to learn. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to be as stupid or naive as I can, and collect information. And also, I guess, some kind of enthusiasm. Sorry, to be excited about the stuff. To be, I think it's very important, in our
Right.
world, and also, and going to the education of our kids. So the best thing we can do in order to teach them how to work like that is by self-example. There is no other way. There is no other way. If they see that you are able to learn new stuff, and maybe, learning new stuff is the best method to be on top of things. And it's
Yeah.
not necessarily about the new stuff that is really like relevant, or will bring you money, or it's about,
Yeah.
maybe learn how to draw. You didn't draw ever, to maybe learn how to sculpture, maybe learn how to work with wood, like new stuff. Just the
Yeah.
muscle is the most important part of the muscle, is not to be afraid, and to experience. And this is by me talking about doing, is not
Yeah.
to be afraid of the first step, because it always, as an entrepreneur, it's the hardest obstacle, the first step. It
Yeah.
all looks like, and once you start to take the first step, it's much easier to take the second and the third. And this is the muscle. This is the muscle I'm kind of talking about, of education, that we have to embrace, and also project to our kids by showing them that we learn new stuff every day.
Yeah.
And they'll get it. They'll get it. If they see that you are doing that, they're gonna get it, and they're also gonna do that.
Yeah, I
So
just had a talk today, this morning, with a friend, about like what do they really need to know? Because first, we don't know what will be the work environment, so we don't know how would they work, and in what professions would they be. Like in 5 years or 10 years, it's like no, 5 years. I would say it's like it's gonna change so much. So what they're learning in university, and we mentioned that sometimes it's not as relevant in some cases. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't like really work. So then they go into working, and what do they really need in order to be happy, content,
mhm,
have a good mental health,
mhm.
and to provide for themselves and make money, right? So it's like most people, when they think about what they need to know, they say, okay, you make lots of money in high tech, go and study
Right,
physics and computer science, and then you'll be okay, and you'll be happy, and you'll have money,
right.
right?
Which is not necessarily all the time true, right?
Right now it could be true, but they're like, let's say they're like 10, so they have about 15 years from now in order to get to the workforce. Who knows,
Yeah,
like who knows what they need. And what we said about mental health is very important, because being more in tech, sometimes it looks like you have more possibilities and more options and more friends and more people you could meet, but actually you feel more lonely, because what we said, we need to see each other in the eye and to really meet each other, and we do
right,
it less. We do
right,
it less.
right. And it should liberate us, right? In a way, the AI should liberate us, and we talked about it. Like, there should be some kind of a liberation process in terms of time, right? It takes us less time to do stuff. We get to our targets faster. We could be more productive. Doesn't that mean that we now have more kids time with our kids and loved ones? I can see it clearly, the connection here. And if we're not, it's a mistake. Like, we're just overloading more and more and more and more, and there's no limit to it. So I think that there should be liberation here. And and I'm not sure what is the right thing to learn, or would you be a curator, like in a YouTube curator? Maybe that's the way to go now.
Yeah.
And I agree with that, by the way. And I told you about your path. I think it's a great path
Mhm.
because for a computer, it'll be very hard to collect information that resonates with him, like a human being will. And you
Yeah.
can, the way to curators are going to be great having success,
Mhm.
I think good ones, because they bring
Yeah.
information. They don't necessarily create it, but they have this like feeling of what is good and what is not, which AI has a lot of difficulty to do that because it's a taste, right? It's a personal taste, and each one of us has this like unique personal taste that you can't really mimic somehow. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so so I think curators are going to be like a great way of for kids to grow and to monetize in the world. But at the same time, I think that it'll be very hard to guess now what will be right and what will be not. But the learning muscle will be the most important muscle going on forward. So the ability to forget and what you learned and learn new stuff.
Yeah. And I
And
think it's not only learning, is coping with change in general, right?
right,
It doesn't have to be cognitive, it could be emotional too.
absolutely,
Um, and
absolutely,
I feel that we're not, it seems like till now we had changes all through our lives. All human beings had changes, but the pace was different.
mhm,
And now the pace of change is so much faster. And then your ability to change your way you think, to change your mind, to change the way that you perceive reality, to change your profession, to change whatever, is so much needed. And if you don't have a basic like understanding of yourself, it could be so hard to
very,
do
very,
it.
very, very hard. My heart with the people, it's going to be very hard, and I think it's easy to say, but there's certain perspective of letting go and understanding that you're not going to control those processes, and you have to. It's almost like rowing in a tough sea. It changes all the time. You have to be flexible in order to cross it, because otherwise, if you're too stiff, you're just been taken away, and you have to be flexible. So I think the flexibility has to be is so important in here, and also the understanding that no matter what, it's very hard to control what will happen, uh,
Yeah,
and it's very hard to release that thought, because we
of
all want to
course. We
find
want
our
to control.
families, we have also duties, right? We have kids, we have our lives too, but really there is no control, and I'll tell you,
Yeah,
that's a small
that's
secret.
a secret. I heard something like, "Don't worry, nothing is under control."
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can relate.
this is more or less like that.
Right,
But if you go back to having more free time and liberation, another way of thinking about this change would be, okay, so who would pay us? Or I need to work half the time or even less. Do I get paid the same amount? And if not, what would I do? So
right, right,
that's a question that comes to my mind thinking about the future of
right.
the
So
work in AI.
bottom up, as a person in this changing world, like bottom up, I'm saying try to be more productive using those tools in order to be more effective, productive, and so on. And that means like, and I can't define it like any other way. Like just be
Yeah,
more productive and be better at what you do with those tools. But that's very egoistic, because understand, and
yeah,
that's like up bottom, you understand that it's a huge process, that the society is going to suffer from that, and no matter what, you can think about yourself, but and that's where I'm going to the politicians and to again to the leadership. There's going to be a huge change, and we have to take care of the people. We have to take
yeah,
care of the people, and that's we have to understand it, that we don't need this collective workload that has been before, because it can be replaced. A lot of it can be replaced, but it means that we have to take care of the people and think more social than capital in that sense, and maybe combine them together. But it's not just about being productive here, it's also about well-being, and that's why we're here. And so the egoistic recommendation is use those tools to be better and to make more money and whatever it is, but
yeah,
looking at our society, I think we have to understand that there's going to be like almost like the industrial revolution, but another one which looks different, and we need to take care of the people which can live and we with well-being. And obviously mathematically I think we have enough resources to do that, like in our planet, in the way we're efficient now. We can work less. I really honestly believe that we can work less. It's a bad habit that we inherited, and we're having a tough time stopping it, all of us.
Yeah.
And the COVID gave us like a bell ring and ding. Look at
Yeah.
that. There's a
Yeah.
world out there. There's time. We can be with our loved ones and do the things we like. And I honestly believe that, and I'm optimistic that it can liberate us instead of enslave us. And
Yeah. Being optimistic is always good, right? I just
right,
saw a meme about a professional that totally like understood what he said. You know the pills in the Matrix movie, right?
yeah,
There is the green pill and the blue and red, I think, not
yeah,
green and red, blue and
yeah,
red. So one says like we're gonna be destroyed with AI. Nothing's gonna be here. Like they're gonna kill us all. And the second one is gonna be this beautiful future. Everything's going to be great, and we're going to do things so much faster and lighter. And the funny part was that an AI expert took both pills. He took both of them. It was so funny. But I totally understand what he said. Like, it's the
it's
same
almost
thing.
like the yin and the yang together.
Yeah, yeah, it's the same. I told you that I'm creating an AI product course, and I'm learning all of that stuff, and then just going into it and just learning it more and more. And I don't know what I'm more like. Am I more excited or more anxious? It's like it's both sides
Both
of the
sides.
thing.
Absolutely, absolutely, both sides. And I also myself, I'm migrating between those two sides, but I'm always trying to look um, at the right half side of the glass, the full side of
Yeah,
the glass. And yeah, it is, and it could be very frightening, and for a good reason, for a very
yeah,
good reason. And at the same time, like everything, and comes back to the no control, and we
yeah.
can do our best, and that's it. We can do our 100% and with our
That's
intentions.
all.
It's super important. And just going to this direction, by the way, one of the hardest problems today is the self-estimation in the things we're doing, and AI is also adding to it. Like, right, until now you were a painter, and now AI comes, and who are you now? You're nothing, right? You feel like nothing. How can I?
Mhm.
Takes me like 30 days to draw something like that, and he comes with. And I think that part we have to work on, like, to just be good to ourselves, and believe in ourselves, although these forces may look like they're putting us down. By using them we can shine. so
Mhm.
and I see a lot of people are frustrated about where they are, and just, if you can forgive yourself and be happy with that you are, that's a great start.
Yeah, yeah. I think that what you mentioned, we had a technical discussion and we went into something which is more emotional, but that's fine with me. I love it. But I
Sorry.
think that when you have self-compassion and you understand yourself, and you don't need to get the attention from others or approval from others when you're doing things, this keeps you more alive and happy and content and curious and humble and all of that, because you know that you're just part of everything. You're just a
Right.
very, very, very small part of everything, and you're not in the middle. You're not the sun. You're not like everything is not like because of you and for you. And it's really important. And maybe even like AI would help us understand that in a sense, because then it's like there is something very intelligent, which is not us or human beings in general.
Right. And I think to be perfect is the enemy here. Like, people are trying to be perfect, and in that sense, um stopping at the right time and being feeling good about yourself and moving on is much more important than trying to go to the nits and bits and be perfect and be perfect. It just stops you at a certain stage.
Yeah.
And even AI has a nice term, like in that sense, it calls overfitting. It means
Overfitting? What does
overfitting.
that mean?
It means that if you'll take a group to study, like a data set, training set to study on,
Hmm.
and there's a chance that you're going to study all the samples by heart, almost like a student that studied, the answers of early exams, but if he's going to get like another question which is a little bit far off,
Hmm.
he's not going to understand because he learned by heart and not by.
Hmm.
So the AI
Yeah.
also himself can learn by heart, and that means overfitting. It means it learned only the samples that you trained it on, but any other sample that you didn't train on, it will not ever learn. And it
Yeah.
it and it happens when you get to 100% like success accuracy usually. Then
Ah,
it brings a worry that you didn't have enough samples, and you kind of
ah.
know all the samples by
Hey,
heart.
you're too
So
perfect. That's not good.
too perfect, exactly,
Yeah.
not ready to
Which
talk
is,
about.
it's nice to think about it. Like there is this thing that even machines are sometimes too perfect, meaning there is a problem if it's 100% accurate, the data was not. It's like if you're too sure of yourself, it means that you're not that smart.
Right, or you
That
don't,
is more or less.
or you have like too few samples and you learn them by heart, like 10 samples of pictures, then you
Yeah.
probably learn only those 10 samples and nothing else.
It's so funny. It reminds me of what you say about smart people. They have like so much more knowledge. So they touch the unknown knowledge so much because they have a bigger like size of knowledge. And if you
Right,
have a very small size of knowledge, you touch your surface of the knowledge is so much smaller, and then you just don't know what you don't know. It's the same
right,
thing.
right. So we
So
all have to be like Da Vinci's, a bit like Da Vinci's, not as good as he was, but
hopefully we
as
can.
curious as he was, as curious as he was.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So before we close again, we could I think we could have a third hour, but we'll have only two. There are two topics that we didn't touch, and I would love to hear what you're saying about the data sets, and because we know that right now we're taking data sets from the reality, from the world, and in the world there are like ethical problems and bias data, and sometimes we don't really know that this is what is going to be learned. So we're taking the data, and then the machine would learn something that might be problematic as a prediction for the future. So what could we do about that? Like we don't invent data, so what could be done about this thing?
Right, right. So we have to challenge that in a way, and we'll always have to challenge that. And by meaning of challenging that, it means that it's an ongoing process that we'll have to learn as we go through the process, because it will always, those biases are going to show up every time. Because think about it, you're trying to um, simulate reality by sampling reality. Now sampling reality is almost like, you decide that, um, you decided the world,
The past and the future would be the same.
you decided the world looks like that, but you just took
Mhm.
parts of the reality and not all the reality, and you assume that everything is going to go by that. But just by choosing which samples are resembling reality is a huge task by itself. Because let's say we want to create,
Let's take in HR. If you want to hire people, that you're
right,
taking the most like successful people in the company, and as their CVs and what they sent, and you're saying, okay, these type of people would be our next leadership. They're so successful.
right, and it'll probably also affect the reality itself, so it kind of
Sure,
resonates with reality, right?
right.
Uh, I was thinking about more of image recognition problems where you even, there are those problems of what decision to take in an automatic like car, like automotive cars,
Yeah,
like what decision to take. Do I, ran over somebody or save my life, for example, right?
yeah,
Those
right.
problems, and just a small example of how many examples there could be.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
don't really know the answers ourselves, to be honest, like for now.
Yeah.
So these are going to pop up everywhere, those like mushrooms of unknown places, which are between the drops, and not necessarily we predict them. And I think we're going to see it over and over again, and we just have to regulate that through experience. I don't think there is any way of predicting how it will be. At the same time, I call for regulation. At at So we have to kind of do processes where we it's almost like a virus relationship, where you immune and the virus gets better, and you immune and the virus gets better. So it's almost like that, but we have to find those tools that are enabling control over the tools of AI. So that means um, some kind of a tool which will come up and raise up those mushrooms before they come up, right? Like
Yeah, it's like
also,
security. It's the same
yeah,
as security.
almost like QA before you
Yeah,
release a software, right? Almost like QA tools, but those QA tools have to be much more sophisticated. They have to understand, what limitations the system have. So imagine face recognition, that there's probably a face that is not recognized but looks like a face, right? There is
yeah,
a whole there are backdoors in the system all the
yeah,
time, and there will
yeah,
be all the time, because life is not necessarily like define. And even if you
yeah,
want to define it, and you want to sample, only by sampling life, you already decide which will be true and which will not. So how many samples do I bring of white people and black people? How many samples what is resembling reality? Like every country is different, right, in terms of ethnicity.
yeah,
But I want the system to work, so I want it to. So there'll always be holes and unknown in this reality, and I think we just have to understand that it's going to happen, to understand,
yeah,
and that these are pitfalls that are going to happen.
yeah.
It's not perfect.
Yeah, I think that it's very similar, as you say, like to for QA, but a different type of QA, and especially when you're talking about generative AI, that could produce so much more possibilities, just creating more and more things like all the time. So it's really hard to even think or perceive what could be, and then try to test it in advance. So it's
Right,
going to be harder.
and think about the future, like predicting, right? With predicting, like, let's stop for a minute, like the AI, and are you trying to
Hmm.
predict the future? Like, who knows what will happen in the future between you and me? Like, so
Yeah,
from the beginning, it's not an accurate science, for sure. Like, for sure, for
right.
sure, for sure. Like,
Yeah.
and you don't have to be a super scientist to understand that. Like
Yeah.
the
Although, like most people would say, okay, stock market prediction is already here more or less.
Right, and
For
then you
many
can
years, it's just getting
then
better. Okay,
because
so
because when you're doing this type of prediction, basically, to the simplest analogy, you are driving in a car that you're looking at the review mirror, basically. Now you're estimating that the road has kind of curves that can, you can still take them, but maybe
yeah,
there's a wall or a cliff, and you won't be able to see that. So
yeah,
again, this humbleness, again, it's
asking
not
questions.
not going to be perfect. There are going to be pitfalls, and if you're trying to predict the future, make sure that you understand that you can't predict the future. You can estimate what will happen, and you may have good results when you trained it on past data, and you're confident that it's 76% accuracy and whatever it is. But at the same
Yeah,
time, please be aware that you don't know what is the future. Please, please, please.
yeah. Okay, so I don't know. We had a last questions, and maybe you would change it. But my last question would be, what would be your number one tip for AI entrepreneurs today?
Mhm. I'm thinking.
Yeah. So we mentioned being curious and humble,
Right,
open-minded. We just
right.
mentioned that sometimes you cannot control what's going to be. So be prepared for the unknown, more or less, in AI. But I would say it's very similar
Be
to any
creative.
entrepreneur.
Be creative. Be aware. be aware. And that means, like, we talked about entrepreneurs, and they're striving for having their ideas to manifest. Leave that alone, please. It's, don't force it. That's what I mean. Don't force it. Just be open, and um, don't be engaged into sunk cost. Like, there's always, there's this education that whatever you started, you have to finish. That's
Yeah.
not necessarily true. Now, and
I hope that your kids is not listening to this like
no, I actually told them, like, lately, that
okay.
it's not a principle by itself, right? It When it serves you, it serves you. When it's not serving you, it's not serving you. But it's not a principle that it's not the target for sure. Like,
Yeah.
so,
Again, being flexible with what you
open
decide and
open
when it's good
minded,
for you.
creativity, humbleness. I guess bravery. I guess, you need to be brave. You need to be
Yeah,
brave,
take risks.
and I think that's it. Belief. I think belief, like, probably the most important part.
Yeah.
You can imagine it happening, and work on this side, on the mental side of believing, and maybe that's, the most powerful thing that I can talk about,
Yeah.
other than, the practical stuff.
Yeah. It's hard to like
And
in general, being an entrepreneur, you need to have this imagination and to believe in this imagination. So you
right,
believe that it could be
and
a reality in the future.
the idea that you have to be a data scientist in order to be an AI entrepreneur is not necessarily true. Like, an entrepreneur is more like orchestrator than
Hmm.
the doer himself. He has to
Yeah.
understand and engage people that will believe in his idea, and hope that they'll be better than him so they can manifest the idea. But I think that's very important. And good luck.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of ups and downs.
Sure, but it will be interesting if you're curious, you get
For
it.
sure. And there is no better time for that, by the way. I think now is the best
Yeah.
time. It's the
Yeah,
best time.
Sam Altman mentioned that right now being an AI entrepreneur is the best time,
The
and there are
best.
so many other possibilities to do it. So, of course.
It's the best time, and good luck. Good luck.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure again to talk to you. And it went like, like really
Yeah,
fast, so I didn't
yeah.
even feel it was almost an hour. So
I
thank
enjoyed it, and thanks a lot for the questions, guys. It was great to see that we're not alone here.
Yeah, and we always like cherish the people who listen and they're contributing to the discussions. And where could people contact you and see your work?
So, LinkedIn, Raviv Yatom. This is my current company, and um, you can look me
Yeah,
up in the internet easily. And
yeah,
please feel free to talk
yeah,
to me. I'll be happy to help.
sure. Raviv Yatom, it's been a pleasure to have you here again. It's the only time, as I mentioned, that I have like someone for the second time, week after a week for sure. So it's been a pleasure to have you here. And to
Same.
all of you change makers out there, thank you for joining us, and I'll see you another week with another insightful talk. Thanks, you, Aviv. See ya.
Bye bye.